Come on, give God praise in the sanctuary. Grab your Bibles. There's a word I want to share with you. It's a word I want to share with you. My pastor was here. He would say this word wouldn't leave me alone. I just want to share this word with you. The book of Philippians, chapter number 4. All those I've seen walked in since I last stood, we greet you in the name of the Lord. The book of Philippians, chapter 4. I need your prayers. It's going to be much jazz, a lot of dinner, not a lot of dessert today, but I promise you this dinner is going to help you. The book of Philippians, chapter 4. I want to focus our attention on verse number 11 for our sermonic scripture. Book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse number 11. Not that I was ever in need, for I have now learned how to be content with whatever I have. I don't want you to think I've been out here begging. I was never really in need. Even when I thought I wasn't. Because I've learned. Tell your neighbor, you got to learn. I've learned how to be content with whatever I have. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, what do you do when you're standing in the gap? God bless you. May be seated in the very presence of our Lord. That's what I want to talk today from this subject, the gap. The gap. There are many of you that ran and shout, bought the t-shirt and celebrated the fact when you heard God say elevation. You heard him say elevation and you put your own personal countdown because you just knew that any moment now, elevation was going to knock on your door. You anticipated it. You planned for it. You picked out the necessities and the accessories for what it is that you had been praying for. But what often fools us about life is that sometimes God makes you wait. And so much about today's church is how instantaneous blessings come. That all you got to do is name it and claim it. Grab it and you can have it. But what does not get celebrated, what does not allow for great love offerings is when the man of God tells the people of God, yes, God said it. But the reality is sometimes you got to wait. And what do you do when you're in between the prayer request and the praise report? That place that you and I stand, we call that the gap. The church does a great job with celebrating starts. We do a great job, our chat, congratulating the finish. But what do we do when the person is in the gap? The gap is the place where you feel like you're not going anywhere. The gap is the place where you've come too far to turn back. But you're still so far that you feel like giving up. What happens when you're in a spot that you don't even know how to describe? You can't give an ETA to your destiny. Because the gap is the place between dreams and destiny. The gap is the place between life and death. It's the place between you wanting a fairy tale wedding and willing to settle for a cheap divorce. When you're in the gap, it is the place where you're the most fearful. It's the place where you feel like giving up. It's the place where you feel like throwing in the towel. It's the place where you're standing in between the diagnosis and the healing. It's the place between going to school and getting the diploma. It's the place between graduating and starting the career. It's the place between getting your first paycheck and waiting on your real paycheck. That place that we don't know how to describe. I want to suggest that that place is called the gap. The gap is the place where we're in between the career and the retirement. It's the place between retirement and death. The gap is the place that we don't know how to describe. The gap is the place, Zion, between revealing the plans and breaking the ground. And the problem with being in the gap is when you're in the gap, folks start doubting if you're ever going to get there. When you're in the gap, they're looking for the latest update. They're looking for some good news. They're looking for something else to see. But the problem is you ain't got nothing to show them. The problem is you don't have nothing to say, because sometimes when you're in this place, you really don't know where you are. The gap is the place where the GPS gets silent. If you ever taken a long journey, you punch the destination in your car, Jazz, they give you turn-by-turn navigations. Turn here, turn there, get there, make it to the expressway, and in 400 more miles, you make your next turn. And the gap is the place where you're in the car driving to your destination, and all you hear is suffering silence. The gap is the place where you're trying to figure out, am I going in the right direction? Because I thought by now I would at least hear you're doing a good job. Am I going in the right direction? Because God, all I'm asking is that you give me a sign. But God says sometimes it's the silence. That's the confirmation. Because here's how you know you're in the right direction. Because as soon as you get off track, you hear the spokeswoman says, recalculating the route. There's somebody in the room, you've been struggling with the silence. You've been struggling because God has not said a word. And God told me to tell you the reason why I haven't spoken like you wanted me to speak is because you're heading in the right direction. And I wish somebody would celebrate the fact that God is confirming in me that yes, it may be lonely. Yes, I may be depressed. Yes, I hear the silence, but the silence is confirming that I'm headed in the right direction. Because the gap is the place we don't know how to respond. The gap is the place where you're trying to figure out, do I just want to be with me or do I want to get married? The gap is the place where you say, well, do I really want to be with somebody or am I willing to stay by myself? That's because the gap the place you trying to yet figure it out. I want to suggest, Wesley, the older you become, the greater, oh God, the gap becomes. The older you become, the more nervous you become. The more older you become, you now see the clock ticking. You see, I'm getting too old to have this child. I'm getting too old to get this blessing. I'm getting too old. And so the older I become, the greater the gap gets. But aren't you glad you don't serve a God that's telling the time that if God said it, he may give it to you at 30. He may give it to you at 40. You may be 50. You may be 60. You may be in your 70s and your elegant 80s. But God says, no matter what age you are, I still got you if you learn how to stay in the gap. Because the gap is the place where God elevates our faith. The gap is the place that's in between the failure and the favor. The gap is the place between the mess up and the miracle. The gap is the place between the fall down and the bounce back. And I wonder, before I move on in this lesson, is there anybody that knows what it feels like to stand in the gap? Is there anybody in the building that knows what it feels like to not know what to do? Is there anybody in here that knows what it feels like to say, I've come too far to turn back now? Nobody told me that the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far just to leave me now. Tell somebody, I'm in the gap. I'm in the gap. And the older we become, the greater it becomes. And so when you're in a great gap, the problem is you think you got to make some great changes. When you're in the gap, you feel like you can't come out of it unless you get a great blessing. When you're in the gap, you feel like you need a monumental breakthrough just to get you to where you want to be. That's why you think the lotto will fix it. Y'all ain't helping me. That's why there's some of us that don't even play it until we see it in a great number. When we see those 3 digits coming up on the sign, we say, God, I finally found a number that I know I can get through. God, if you just give me that, my debt is so great. I believe it takes a great blessing. But God told me to tell you, baby, it don't matter the size of the gap. You think the lotto's going to do it, but God says, be still and know that I am God. You don't need the lotto. All you need is the Lord. Is there anybody in the building that can shout, I don't need lotto when I still got the Lord? He says. In this gap, you don't need what you think you need. You need a small twitch. You need a small tweak. You need a small step that can get you from the Ella to the Vation. It's a small step. Tell you somebody a small step. Because what the devil wants to do, he wants to magnify what it's going to take. Y'all ain't helping me. And when he magnifies what it's going to take, ultimately, he does it so that we might quit. Ooh, See, when you find out that it takes $10,000 saved in order to get the house, you'll say, y'all ain't helping me. You'll just rather stay in an apartment. But God told me to tell you, baby, just get the research, just get the numbers, because what seems to be big to you is still small for me. What's over your head is still under your feet. I'm preaching already. You can tell somebody, it may be over my head, but it's still under his feet. God told me to tell you, it ain't going to take a big thing. It's going to take something small. My grandmama's here. She would say it will take something T90. Y'all ain't helping me. To get you beyond the gap. And it is Paul that says, I want to give you some small things that you need to do. Because he said, I've learned that wherever I am in this gap, I've learned how to be content. He says, I'm content, but I'm not complacent. I'm grateful, but I still want greater. I wish I had somebody in the building that could put a quarter in a meter and shout right there. Listen, God, I'm grateful, but I'm still going after greater. Is there anybody in the building that can say, God, I'm satisfied where I am, but I still believe eyes have not seen and ears have not heard and it has not in store what God has in store for me. I'm grateful, but I still want greater. Because in wherever I'm at, no matter how much I have, I've learned to be content. So Paul, tell us, how did you get into this state of contentment? Because to be honest with you, Paul, when I look at my bank account, I'm in a state of complaint. Y'all ain't helping me. When I look over the other side of my bed, I'm in a state, y'all ain't helping me, of complaint. Y'all ain't willing to tell the truth. God, Paul, tell me, how do I get to that state? How do I move from my state to that state? Paul gives us the first step. He says, I was able to move into this state. Watch this, write this down, because I had know-how. Somebody shout know-how. It's right there in the text, verse 11. He said, verse 12, I know how to be abased. I know how to be about. He said, I know to live on almost nothing or everything. I've learned the secret of living, oh God, in every situation. I know how to be full. I know how to act when my stomach is on empty. You know the problem with this generation? This generation has no know-how. Y'all ain't helping me. This generation, Patella, has no know-how. They don't know how to do nothing. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to clean. Y'all ain't helping me. They don't know how to wash. Y'all ain't helping me. They don't know how to be by themselves. Y'all don't help me, God. Everybody needs somebody because you had no know-how. What the pandemic taught us, Wesley, is we got to develop a greater know-how. Because what happens when you can't order Uber Eats? Y'all ain't helping me. What happens when you can't go to the laundromat? What happens when you can't take your stuff to grandma? This generation has no know-how. But I believe I got some senior citizens in the room. If you want to know how I survived because I had know-how. I knew how to make a sandwich without bread or meat. I knew how to make Kool-Aid without sugar. Is there anybody in the building that know that I made it because of my know-how? Paul. Y'all got time? I got more time. Paul said, I survived because I had know-how. And we're raising a generation of children who have no know-how. It's so bad, y'all, that they don't even know how to play. If you here's new generation. Here's new generation. I grew up on the beating generation. I grew up on the butt whooping generation. But you know how to beat your children in 2022 without going to jail? Cut off the Wi-Fi. Y'all ain't helping me. If you cut off the Wi-Fi, your children won't know what to do. If you cut off the Wi-Fi, it's like they in jail, in prison, in Russia somewhere. You know why? Because they don't have any know-how. Technology has ruined the know-how. Man, when I was growing up, all you needed was chalk and cement and a tree. If you had chalk and cement, you could play outside all day. You could draw a little box and play hopscotch. You can play 4 squares. You can jump rope. Y'all ain't talking to me. You ain't need all this stuff. We knew how to play. Go to outside of grandmama's tree and play hide go seek all day long. Y'all don't know how. We had know-how. We knew how to survive. And it wasn't just running in and out the house to get some cold water. We drunk the water with the temperature, y'all ain't talking to me, of the water hose. Y'all ain't talking to me. It wasn't this Gatorade. It wasn't all this iced tea. We knew how to stay hydrated. Now these children stay outside for 30 seconds. They don't know how to play. Get your butt back out there. You need some know-how. Paul says, I know how. Tell somebody, I know how. 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 I love grandma. Grandma knew how to make stuff stretch. Can I be honest? I almost got into a domestic situation the other day. No, we don't hit. We just look at each other real funny. But my wife was fixing some tacos, and she was using some salsa. And I was trying to be a good husband, Damien. I was trying to just pick up and clean up behind her. You know, you cook, I clean, you know that. And I picked up the little jar of salsa because I thought she was done with it. And she said, hey. I ain't going to tell you what else she said. Hey. What you doing with that? So I'm getting ready to go. She said, no, I'm not done with that. Come on. And Sister Hunter, all I see is remnants of salsa. And I'm like, Peaches, it ain't this bad. I may can't afford to send you to Aruba, but I can at least get you another. You ain't gonna sit here and act like it's this bad as you got. She said, no, it's still something left in the jar. How you gonna make this thing straight? Because there's an ingredient that ain't on the jar that I'm about to go. I'm about to go to the faucet and I'm about to add my ingredients. Add water. Is there anybody in the building that grew up in the add water generation? You better not throw that ketchup away. You gonna add the water. Look at somebody, tell them, thank God for water. Thank God. Water, I know how to make it stretch. You throwing a whole meal away. My house, you didn't. Thanksgiving lasts all week. That turkey she cooked on Thursday, y'all ain't helping me. Was gonna be turkey sandwich, turkey salad, y'all ain't helping me. And whatever left, we gonna freeze it. Y'all ain't talking to me, because I know how to make it stretch. I gotta go, Paul says. The reason why you stuck in the gap, because you haven't developed the know-how. And Paul says, I got you in the gap. I got you in the pandemic because I'm trying to teach you to learn know-how, to know how to make it without friends, to know how to survive in isolation. I got you here because I'm trying to teach you that you don't need who you think you need. He says, I got know-how. God says this, and I'm moving. Paul says, until we get a greater level of know-how, God says, I'm going to keep you in the gap. So what does God require in this season? Here it is. Write it down. God only requires for us to do the best where we are with what we have. Danielle, it's simple. While we're in the gap, God only requires us, Sister O, to do our best where we are with what we have. I'll say it one more time because I used to be slow. God only requires, Brandon, for us to do our best where we are with what we have. Sometimes the best move ain't to leave. You so busy waiting to do your best where you're going, when you ain't even doing your best where you are. Stop asking God for greater elevation when you lazy where you are. And you keep thinking it's because of your skin that they won't promote you. And what they saying in backroom meetings is, if she taking 2-hour lunch breaks now, what's going to happen when we make her the supervisor? Y'all ain't talking to me. If she using sick days for vacation days, now, y'all ain't helping me. What's she going to do when we give her what she asked for? God only requires us to do our best Number one, where we are. Somebody shout, where we are. You see, I can't wait to do my best pastoring where we're going. Y'all ain't talking to me. God says you'll never get where you're going if you're not doing your best where you are. And not only do you look at where you are, he says do your best with what you have. See, what we're not going to do in this season is we're not going to keep comparing hands. And we're getting discouraged because we're not able to do what someone else is doing. But listen, child of God, you don't have their hand. And you killing yourself, you burning yourself out because you're trying to do something that God didn't give you the strength to do. God said, do your best with what you have. Folks come up to me saying stupid stuff. Man, dog, if I had your hand, I would trade mine in. Man, if you had my hand, you would find you a cigarette, a drink, and a gun. You don't understand that God has allowed me God has given me grace for what's in my hand. You can't handle my hand. If you only knew the hell I've gone through with this hand. Man, I wish I had that. Holler at me when it's time for payroll. Holler at me when it's time y'all ain't helping me. Holler at me when it's time to do this job and that job. God only requires you to do your best with what you have. What we're not going to do in this season, we're not going to let folk criticize us because we ain't doing it on that level. God ain't impressed because you gave $1,000 when you had $10,000 in your hand. God says, I'm impressed when you give $5 when you only had 10 in your hand. Is there anybody in here that says, God, I'm going to do my best with what's in my hand. And if it ain't enough, I'll say, precious Lord, take my hand and lead me on. But I can only do my best with what's in my hand. Do you not know there are people that will commit suicide if they had your hand? Y'all know that. Do you know there are people that will be in perpetual depression if they had your hand? But what folk don't understand is I thank God that God has made this raggedy hand still look good. Is there anybody in the building that can say, baby, don't let this look fool you. I don't look like what I've been through. I'm just doing my best with what's in my hand. He says, so whatever state I'm in, I've learned how to be content. I've learned how to make the necessary adjustments. So much so that my disposition doesn't always match my situation. So he says, watch this and I'm done. He says, there's 3 little things I need you to tweak when you're in this gap. He said, number 1, he says, Paul says in verse 13, I can do all things through Christ that gives me strength. So I said, Paul, what are the 3 things we need to switch while we're in this gap? He said, number 1, I need you to change your mindset. You better talk about it. Somebody shout mindset. Paul says, what I need you to do, I need you to focus on your mindset. Paul says, I know you're in this gap. I know you feel like you're a long way from getting there, but you're going to get there faster when you develop a greater mindset. Paul gives us a mindset of I can. What I'm tired of hearing in this generation is a generation that can only say, I can't. I can't because of this. I can't because of that. I can't because I'm black. I can't because I'm broke. I can't because I live in the projects. I can't because of this. I can't because of my mom. I can't because of my daddy. God said, baby, this is the season of your life that you got to develop a greater mindset. I'm here to speak into mindsets now. Is there anybody in the building that says it doesn't matter what it looks like? I'm going with the I can. Somebody shout, I can. It's your mindset that has to change. God says, you keep thinking, Pastor Austin, you need the money to build the church. But God says you don't just need the money to build the church. You need the mindset to build the church. Because sometimes the people won't give the money because they don't have the mindset. Teach, Pastor A. And if you develop a greater mindset, people can have the money. The reason why you won't move out of that situation because you keep saying, I can't pay mortgage. Baby, newsflash. If you can pay rent, you can pay. Y'all ain't telling me. You can pay mortgage. It's a matter of the mind. God says, I need you to tell the people. No gravy today. I need you to tell the people that while they're in this gap, they got to develop a greater mindset. I can't because I failed. I can't because I fell short. I can't because I don't have this. I can't because I don't have the degree. I can't because I don't have that. I don't have this. But God says, listen, first step is a small step. And it starts with a mindset. It was at that moment sitting just about where Sister Carolyn Thomas is there, and Brandon will tell you, we were sitting right there, and I was saying, God, there's no way. You must be telling me we got to scrap the vision because we're in a recession, we're in a pandemic, ain't nobody coming to church anymore, and that must mean you want us to settle and be content with where we are. And God said, no, I still need you to have the mindset to move forward. But Pastor, God, we don't have the money. He said, don't worry about the money. I need you to change your mindset. And if you change your mindset, I'll touch the mindset of the members. And when I touch the mindset of the members, then the money will start flowing. And we went from nothing to 10 grand, nothing to 20 grand, nothing to 40 grand, nothing to 50 grand, nothing to 75 grand, nothing to 100 grand, nothing to 130 grand. Why? Because of mindset. Before I give you the money, I will not give the blessing to a broke mindset. I'll say it again. I'm moving. I will not give the blessing to somebody with a broke mindset. Because people with a broke mindset feel like they got to wear it so people can see it. People with a broke mindset got to flash it. But people that got a blessed mindset will throw on a pair of Levi jeans and a pair of tennis shoes and go to a boardroom inside $1 billion deal because they know that the clothes don't make me. I make the clothes. It's about mindset. But then he says, I can what, Paul? I can do. Second thing you need to understand is, I'm working on your mindset. But here it is, Stefan, I'm giving you a skill set. What's going to get you out of the gap is not just the spirit, but the skill set. Because Paul says, I can do all things. Now, here's the thing that God had dealt me with. All things doesn't mean everything. And God says, your success is how well you utilize your skill set. And you got to understand that everyone under the sound of my voice has a specific and unique skill set. That we don't have to feel like I'm not enough if I can sing but I can't play. Because God has gifted all of us with specific skill sets. And the reason why the church is so jacked up is we walk around trying to steal people's, y'all ain't helping me, skill set. When God says, you don't need nobody else's skill set. Use what I've given you. Because you don't have to know how to do everything, but I've given you the know-how to do all things. So the question is, what does it mean by all things? What Paul means by all things is you can do all the things that you desire to do. Paul says there's nothing that you have a desire or a dream to do that you don't have the power to do it. But here's what we do with our skill sets. First thing we do with our skill sets is we try to abandon them. We walking away from them out of fear. We're walking away from them because we're scared. We're walking away from it because we don't think that it's enough. We're walking away from it because we've messed up. We're walking away from it because the church won't receive us. Y'all ain't talking to me. We're walking away because we're afraid that folk gonna talk about us. But God says, if I've given you the skill set, number one, you have my permission to use it. Secondly, I've given you the power to use it. And then thirdly, our chat, I'm going to make sure you get paid to use it. Woo! You missed your shot right there. God said, if you just operate in your skill set, number one, I'm giving you permission to use it. I'm giving you power to use it. And I'm going to make sure you get paid to use it. And stop trying to think the only way you can get paid is through the church's bank account. Stop lying to folk. I do all this for free. The devil is a liar. You ain't doing nothing for free. You think it's free because the church ain't paying you. God said, come here. You want to know how I'm paying you? I woke you up this morning. I started you on your way. I put clothes on your back, food on your table, a roof over your head. Is there anybody in the building that can testify that serving the Lord will pay off after a while? Somebody shout, yes, it will. Oh. You use your paycheck. I make sure people that don't even like you pay you, that don't even know you pay you. God says you can't abandon your skill set. Then secondly, give me 10 more minutes. Secondly, God says, please know that the enemy is going to try to attack the skill set. You know you got a skill set from the Lord when the enemy tries to attack it. I was reading a post from Stefan a few weeks ago. He says, my hands are hurting. And he don't even understand what was happening. Come on now. It wasn't his head. It wasn't his feet. It was his hands. Because the enemy knows he needs his hands. Y'all ain't helping me. to play divine instruments. And if you ever want to know what God has blessed, look at what the enemy is trying to attack. Y'all helping me. That's why you don't know how to pray. You got to know when the devil is trying to attack your skill set. And he does it through struggle and through sin. The enemy does this through a struggle or through sin. Because he knows all church folk got to hear is a sin. And they will snatch you out the church so fast. Y'all ain't helping me. If you ever want the church to abandon you, let them find out that you got a sin. And if they ever find out you got a sin, they no longer want you to use your skill set. But here it is. God knew you was going to be a sinner when he gave you the skill. Oh, God. This is not a license to sin. This is not a license to struggle. But I'm here to tell you, I refuse to allow the enemy to use sin to attack my skill set. I'm going into a state of repentance. I'm going to a state of repentance. I'm saying, Lord, cover me, hide me, but don't take away my skill set. It was David who said, don't take your joy away from me. Creating me a clean heart so I can use and be governed by the right spirit. Tell your neighbor, use your skill set. Don't let the sin stop you from singing. Don't let the sin stop you from preaching. Don't let the fact that she got pregnant stop them from being used by God. The enemy attacks skill sets. He wants you to struggle so you can stop praying. He wants you to struggle so you can stop worshiping. He wants you to struggle so you can sit in the back of the church. It ain't hypocritical for you to sin and still working. All you demonstrating is what grace looks like. And I had somebody in the room that said, listen, I'm serving not because I'm perfect. I'm serving so I can demonstrate what grace looks like. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. I'm done when I tell you this. You recognize when God wants you to use your skill set. When you've been asked to do something you don't think you are qualified to do. And God says, if I ask you to do it, it means you've been anointed to do it. If I'm presenting it to you, it means you still have the power to do it. And Paul says, I can do all the things that my mind and my hands desires to do. But here it is that I'm done. I can't do it by myself. Is at this moment we realize the real source behind getting us out this gap. It was Paul who says, I can't do this because of my own credentials. I can't do this because I'm a great preacher. But Paul says, I can do this because it's Christ who gives me strength. So last thing I want to tell you is you got to recognize, watch this, what's in your tool set. Somebody shout tool set. What do you mean, Pastor? It was just this week. Kim brought something home, and she brought something home, and she said, Pastor, put this together. So I was putting it together. It was just something a little small for our office, and there was some screws there, and I was putting it together, Stefan, and I was screwing it together, and because I had know-how, I couldn't find, so I took my nail, and I was screwing in the nail. I was screwing in the screw into the set. And my 7-year-old son, God knows this is the truth, said, Daddy, what are you doing? I said, what it look like I'm doing? I'm screwing this into this. He said, Daddy, you ain't got to use that. There's something in the tool set that was made to put in. And Noah said, yeah, it's a drill. And they begin to argue. He said, no, I don't think it's a drill. He said, it gotta be a drill. He said, no, I don't think it's called a drill. He said, describe it to me. He said, I said, go get it. When I sent him to go get it, he went inside my tool set, and he didn't get a drill, he got a screwdriver. And they didn't know I was working on this sermon, but I started shouting. And they were like, and they know me by now. They pick on me. They say, we know when Daddy studied, because he walk around talking to himself. He walk around just saying stuff to himself. And I began to shout and give God praise. And they like, oh boy, he must be working on something. And they didn't know what I was working on, because I recognized that's how I was going to end the sermon. And I said, I'm going to end the sermon because my 7-year-old son knew I needed something. And he didn't know what it was called, but he knew what it can do. You missed your shout. My 7-year-old son knew I needed something. He didn't know what it was called, but he knew what he can do. I came to tell somebody today that when you are trying to get through the gap, you got to use what's in your tool set. You might not have the money. The money ain't that's what's going to strengthen you. It's not the degrees that's going to strengthen you. But when I look through my tool set, I got something that's going to give me strength. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, if you need some strength, you may not know what to call him, but I know what he can do. Do I have anybody in the building that you may call him a whole lot of stuff? Some call him Jehovah Jireh. Some call him Jehovah Nissi. Some call him Jehovah Shalom. I don't know what you call him, but I know what he can do. He's able to make a way out of no way. That's what he can do. He's able to open doors that's closed in your face. That's what he can do. He's able to heal your body when the doctor counted you out. He's able to give you a check that's willing to make a down payment for your brand new house. Somebody shout, that's what he can do. And if there's anybody in the room that knows what he can do, turn to somebody and say, neighbor, you can't make me doubt him, because I know too much about him, and I need 5 people that know what God can do to testify. If you want to know if he'll make a way, just look at me. If you want to know if he can bring you back from a spiritual hell, just look at me. If you want to know if he'll help you raise your kids by yourself, just look at me. So if you see me giving God praise, if you see me running around the church, it's because I know what God can do. And if you know what he can do, don't wait until it does it. But right now, in the gap, give him praise, because I believe he's getting ready
to bring me out to the other side. And if you already see that you already are where you know you want to be, give God, give God, give him a God praise. Give him a God praise. Give him a God praise. Give it to him. Give it to him. Give it to him. Don't wait. I said don't wait while you're in the gap. Before you get there, give God praise. This is a gap praise. It's a gap praise. We ain't in the new church yet. It's a gap praise. I ain't got the promotion yet. It's a gap praise. I don't have the blessing yet. It's a gap praise. I ain't healed yet, but it's a gap praise. Thank you. My son didn't know what to call it. There's somebody in the building that may not know what to call them. So let me give you a name that's above every name. His name, Jesus. His name, Jesus. The more I call him, the more I call him. What's his name? What's his name? What's his name? Power in that name. What's his name? Healing in that name. What's his name? I can do all things. Stand with me. Stand with me. He gives me strength from day. I'm old school. He gives me strength from day to day, and he'll never I said he'll never lose his power. I can do all things. What things, Pastor? Everything my heart's desire. Because it's not my money. It's not my friends. And I'm going to get through this gap through Christ who's giving me strength. Pastor Brandon's going to come, extend the invitation. But if you're standing in the gap between nowhere and somewhere, I believe this is your moment. I believe this is your time to fill the gap